If a young man has to go and rob somewhere just to get a living,
a gun wasn't something you would look at and be amazed by it.
yeah. Me starting to have a problem with how people define Mathare already, it
shows
that,
you the need.
Yes, that there is a different story that needs to be told.
Yeah.
He worked with the Shujaz. There was this small
magazine. The small magazine. That was a very important magazine, and I don't know why it went out of publication.
I don't know, but I remember people used to do some drawing, but for us who were in creative class, we were doing stories. And if you did a good story, then he would find a way to
publish it in
Shujaz. And it was so amazing to see
your story and your name.
And your name maybe somewhere, or a picture that you
every writer's dream, have your name published somewhere. Hello and welcome yet again to another exciting conversation of Dreams in Motion. It's me, Alan Hubbard, and we are here for yet another exciting conversation. This is Dreams in Motion, and I always tell you, if you've already made $1 million, probably this is not for you. But if you are on your way to make your first $1 million, then you must definitely listen to this conversation. Now, before we even give you value, let me just go straight into it. The channel has been growing. When we look at our analytics, we are getting about 10 to 15 subscribers a day. But I know we can do it better, because when we look at the number of people who engage with our content, it's definitely bigger than that. So do this. If you just tuned in, subscribe to the channel, because it helps us to send the channel and this content to as many people as possible. You never know who this conversation might benefit, and it might change their life. So subscribe, like, and if you even enjoy it better or more, share it with somebody that you know they will also find value from this conversation. Also, you can find us across other social media platforms, on TikTok, on Instagram, as well as on Twitter. It is at Al Concepts, and we are here to mold possibilities. And without further ado, the gentleman that I am talking to today, we met at some UNDP event. This is back in 2021, if I'm not wrong. He is into biodiversity and how can I put it?
We will get into details, but I think environmental protection covers a lot of things.
Environmental protection, and also there is the product that you're pitching, which I also think it sort of touches on biodiversity and all of that. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, and if you're interested in the climate, definitely you need to be listening to this. Without further ado, kindly introduce yourself, Mr. Edwin.
Thank you. I like the introduction. I didn't know we were coming to talk about millions. And then those that have made it and those that have not made it. I don't know where I am, but
you will tell us. We'll definitely find out along the way.
My name is Edwin. Edwin Odhiambo. Currently, I'm the director. Youth and Urbanism Organization.
Okay.
But we have done a lot of things as young people in Nairobi, and especially coming from Mathare slums, which is an informal settlement, the second largest actually in Nairobi.
After Kibera.
After Kibera, yes. And so I think we met while we were doing some exhibition.
Motor bricks.
With one of our initiatives called Motor Bricks Enterprise. So we will talk about that. I know it's very interesting journey we have
you've walked.
We've walked so far, and now running an organization. And McHugh, we started as a youth group, so it's quite a journey, and I'm happy to be here to share with everyone.
And actually that's where I'm going to start it. Because I've asked them to subscribe, and probably they've done so. So before they even continue watching, why should they continue watching? What value are they going to get from this conversation?
For me, I think a lot of things that we face in life generally are not taught in school. And one thing I've learned is just to listen to other people's conversation, to get to listen to people's perspective. I mean, anything that has taken me like 5 years to learn, you can learn it in like this
conversation.
30 minutes conversation. And so I think it's of value as much as then 90% of what we're going to discuss might be useless to you, but there is that 10% that
they might pick from it.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. I like how you're being honest. 90% might not be important, but there might be that 10%
that 10%, and that's important. And that's
that might cause that light bulb moment in your head, and you're like, aha, this is what I was looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let me start personal. Informal settlement, Mathare. The pictures that we get about these places, they are not the best. When you go on the internet, Google to be specific, and just type in Mathare, the pictures that you will be met about the slum, they won't be the most aesthetically looking nice. From what lens should people watch Mathare from?
Yeah, and this takes me back to while I was in primary, I think.
Yes.
Most probably primary. And that was the first time I got into listening conversations. Which goes back to the previous point that we are saying it's important to listen to these conversations. And I had one writer from, I think, Nigeria called Chimanda Ngozi, and she was speaking of dangers of a single story. Where
beautiful book, that one.
Community or a race or a group of people are defined with a single story. And so if you go to Google and try to check Mathare slums,
you will be met with that one single story.
Which portrays hopelessness, which portrays more of a problem instead of solutions, which portrays a lot of things that over time I've tried to work with young people within these areas to say, that is not our story. We
that
need
is
to
not
tell
our narrative.
Story. Because being in Mathare, it's as simple as just sorting an housing problem. It shouldn't be a way of life. It shouldn't be defining you. And so, as an urban planner who understands how slums come up, it has nothing to do with those who are there, right? And so, at times I also Google those things, and the descriptions I find are not that pleasing.
Are not pleasing.
Yeah.
For somebody who has never been in a slum, paint a picture for them.
Yes. So I was born and brought up in Mathare slums, and Mathare slums it's more of a valley. It was used for quarry back in the days. There is where stones were extracted for buildings and things like that. And so those, there was a period. Exactly. There was a period where rural urban migration, which is still going on, of course, was a lot, and people were coming from all over the country to come and look for greener pasture in urban centers in Nairobi. But again, that is always not true. When you come, you are hit with reality, and then you have to find somewhere.
Shamba la mawe.
You have to find somewhere to stay, and so many people find themselves in slums. And that's how Mathare grew and grew and grew and became what it is today. I know there's a lot that leads to that, including government policies and things like that. But yes, that's just a short story of how it
Mathare
came
to be.
And Mathare, being a slum, I'm always not surprised if people can't paint the picture. But this is an area where people live in structures made of iron sheet. These structures are always most probably like 3 meters by 3 meters. And people divide the room using clothes, like sheets. And that then will define where is the bedroom,
sitting room, where there's a kitchen,
and where
the children will sleep.
Where the children will sleep for those that are having families. And these households would contain around 3 to 4, 5 people in a household. For those that are young men, you could get like 6 boys sleeping in
the same place.
And that then brings a lot of issues. It brings a lot of problems like safety and privacy and how, I mean, it's just a lot.
There's a barrage of things that go on.
That now sprout out of that.
Yeah.
And so that is how informal settlements look like. And while growing up, I witnessed my community grapple with a lot of challenges, most of which could now be considered as social crime.
Yeah.
But by then, because I didn't get to understand them, for me they were just normal.
Yeah, that's the norm of the day.
Yeah, the norm of the day. I mean, if a young man has to go and rob somewhere just to get a living,
a gun wasn't something you would look at and be amazed by it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, not actually looking at it, but hearing the sound of it.
The gunshots.
The gunshots, yes. Not so many often do you see guns.
Yeah.
So that is also something I will not say that I've seen a lot of guns in Mathare. But of course, gunshots and,
absolutely.
And the fact that police extrajudicial executions, which people really have mixed feelings about. I mean, you go online and we have all people saying they support it, some people don't support it, and yes, so that's Mathare.
That's basically the picture.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna come to you personally. There is a gentleman that we spoke to. He's called David Molo, and he shared a sentiment that he was also from the informal settlements. And if you haven't watched that, kindly search somewhere on this timeline, you'll be able to find it. And he attributed education that was the game changer for him. For you, Edwin, what was the game changer for you to look at Mathare differently and say, this is not where my story ends, and this is not going to be my story?
Yes, I think many people would summarize it to education.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, learning anything new is called
education.
Getting educated on that front.
Yeah.
But yes, I would support that, because for me, it was a change of perspective. Right, which could as well be attributed to education, because how do you change your perspective? By learning something
new things.
And that was like my starting point. While in primary, I started seeing things that I felt maybe many of my colleagues did not give themselves a chance to see. For example, me telling you that I started to listen to conversations, it means I started looking at things at a different angle. And me starting to have a problem with how people define Mathare, already it
shows you the need.
Yes, that there is a different story that needs to be told. And I remember after a while I joined creative writing group, and we were writing these stories, and I was really trying to write different stories than what was out there. Yes. I would really thank one of my tutors by then, who was teaching us how to write this. It's called Peter. Peter was he worked with Shujaz. There was this small magazine.
The small magazine. That was a very important magazine, and I don't know why it went out of publication.
I don't know, but I remember people used to do some drawing, but for us who were in creative class, we were doing stories. And if you did a good story, then he would find a way to
publish it in Shujaz.
And it was so amazing to see
your story and your name.
And your name maybe somewhere, or a picture that you
every writer's dream, have your name published somewhere.
So that then started making me see things on a different angle and say, okay, this is something we need to look differently. And so for me, I think that was the game changer. The fact that you are able to not look at things the way people are seeing it, but look at things on a different platform. And I think organizations really did a lot, because the activities that they were engaging us in were activities that could then give you that critical thinking. We started developing that in a very early age. And so for most of my classmates who took that seriously, I can see
there's a very big difference.
Exactly. With I mean, if you look at people who went to those creative classes, creative writing classes, those who went to dance groups, those who did theater, those who did, people who got into doing something outside the class, because it opened their mind and they started seeing things,
different possibilities.
Different possibilities. And I remember some of us started traveling back then. Football. I know of a couple of friends who went to where is it? Many people went to Europe. Going to play football at that young age. I know of a few people who went to China to do traditional dance. And you see, that opens your mind. It gives you a new perspective
of the world.
How the world is. So if you ask me what is that one thing that for me I think was turning point, is being able to have a different perspective of things.
But obviously Edwin is young. There is somebody behind who is pushing Edwin into this direction. Now I want to ask about the household. How is the household around you, mom and dad? What thinking do they have even to expose Edwin to these opportunities?
This is crazy. I mean, at times when people ask me about a support group, because that is basically what you're asking, like a team around you and that could include family, friends, and surprisingly, I don't have that, because I come from a very small family. We are just 4. That's my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. So those are 4 people. My mom really loves being on the countryside. Having chicken there and all these things, and then
tumboga twake pale and all of this,
some things, and organizing for you guys to visit in December and make that holiday good for you. And then visiting once in a while, going back. And actually, she hates it in Nairobi. Generally, she hates it. Things are busy, and she starts getting worried of the hens and things like that. So my mom was away from a very young age. Actually, immediately I started school.
She retracted back to the village.
Exactly. My father had, of course, now being the kind of life we lived, he had to work extra hard. Like, I mean, at times I could go for months without seeing him because maybe he went to work in Vihiga or went to another town or had to maybe reduce expenses like transport, and so when he gets a job like in Kitengela,
he does not come back to Mathare.
Exactly. It only makes sense to sleep there. And because he's a carpenter and he was working on these interior designs, and so when he's doing that, it means the house is left to him. So he can take one of the bedrooms and use while he's working. And so we will really take a long time
to see each other.
Then the gap between me and my brother is not a small one. It's quite a big gap. And so the only time we were together is in primary for around 2 classes when he was in around class 7, 8, and I was like in class 4 something. I don't remember the numbers well. But it means by the time I was like in class 5, he was in the high school where I stayed there for like 4 years. He was in Starehe Boys. And the best thing about him is that I think he realized that interacting so much with Mathare would influence him, and so he was trying
to keep away from Mathare.
And I think that was just his own way of
that was his sort of coping mechanism.
Exactly. Then by the time he left in Form 4, I was going to high school, so I also went away. I was in Homa Bay, so there was not that
real connection.
Then by the time I was coming back, he was in JKUAT and he was doing pharmacy, but I went to KU, so those were different.
Basically mlikuwa mnahepana.
So if you're keen, you realize that there is no that
real connection,
or let me not say connection, because we are really connected in terms of being a family and bonding, but not that like check, like someone wants to check what you're doing or guide you in what you're doing. It's like everyone, you live your life. We are a family, but
fanya vitu zako sukuma
be in your own
and
so exactly. And then our extended family is not that much actually. We are not that bonded as many extended family maybe are. Then maybe a good relationship with the teachers, but you see teachers, they're different, primary, secondary, university. So you can't also say that there was that one person that brought you all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that question, I don't know how I'll answer you, but for me, I think it was my own personal initiative to ensure that I become who I want to become.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still working towards that, because I think I'm still not yet there.
Yeah. Definitely, when you're dreaming, you never stop dreaming. But then I would ask, because you're still young, yeah?
Yeah.
You're still young at that particular time. How do you then create this laser focus? Because why I ask this question, there are people who are in their early 20s, they are in their early 30s, and for men sometimes it's worse, because we have this connotation, life starts at 40, and they haven't yet developed that laser focus. Yeah, how do you develop it and say, this is the direction that I'm going to take, and I'm consistently going to work into this direction?
Now you've made me thinking. How do I always do it? I don't know.
It comes naturally.
I think it comes naturally.
Yeah.
And it comes from that point where you just want something good for yourself. Maybe you just want something good for your family.
Yeah.
You just want something good for your friends.
Yeah.
And for me, we always use these. I think there was a time we were joking with Calvin, one of my friends that we are working with, and we are saying at times when someone asks us, what is your motivation?
That is a very...
We are tempted to say poverty or suffering.
Or staying in the slum.
Exactly, because there was a lot of problems that we faced. And at times you don't want someone else to face that problem, and so you don't have a personal motivation, but the fact that you don't
the
want
circumstances
someone else,
around you,
then that then propels you to do something. And so for me, as now we have set a base that we didn't have someone close to coach us or something like that. And then that means all this just came from a personal initiative to say that, hey, I want to be different. I want to do something different for the people, or I need to change the story, or it's like challenging the status quo around you and just saying, I don't want to continue with this. I think something has to change.
Different can be done.
And so for me, that environment that I grew up in is one thing that gives me a lot of pointers of what to do and what not to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I'm happy for having been brought up in that. It was a difficult, and it's still a difficult environment. So I'm not appreciating.
So you are not sort of glorifying it.
Exactly. I'm not glorifying the fact that, hey, you need to grow up in suffering for you to see things at a different perspective. But what I'm saying is that growing up there is what made me start thinking of things differently.
How can you make it different?
And so I don't know if maybe I grew up in
Kileleshwa, Runda,
or something. I don't know if I would be very keen on fighting for stuff and following up my goals to the end and things. But we also have very good people that are brought up in that neighborhood and they're doing wonders.
Absolutely.
Amazing things.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's my environment, but that might not be for everyone.
Absolutely. Interesting. That is a very interesting answer, because many people would say, just because I'm from this area, then there is nothing much that can come out of me, and they never do anything. And you would also find somebody from the other, you would say from the affluent side of town, and they're like, if my family can do this, then that means I can do triple or double of this. So they even push themselves even harder. But then a question, because the answer you've given, I don't want to call it very early in this conversation that you have similarities with Mulo, but he said something similar to what you've said. He can never. When I asked him the question, he said, "Actually, you asking me that question right now is when I realize that there is something that has been in me that has been pushing me. It never comes out clearly." I would prompt a question from that. Why does it never come clearly? Yeah. Why do you never feel, or why would certain people never feel that I have something external, or I have these characteristics, but I haven't realized them? And if somebody realized them early, would it allow them and enable them, even sharpen them a little bit better?
Yeah, and I think you also realized, because when you asked me that question, I had some hesitation, because that is something we always don't really know where it's coming from.
So we never take time to discover ourselves. We just
exactly, we just do.
Yeah.
And I would also say there is nothing to discover. Like, I mean,
Wow.
there is, because
Yeah.
you try and look around your environment,
Yeah.
there is nothing that can influence you within that environment to do good or
Yeah.
do different, apart
Yeah.
from suffering. So there is nothing to discover within that environment. And if there is, then it's that suffering or poverty or something.
Yeah.
If you look at your family, yes, they were very busy trying to make
Change.
a living for
Yeah.
you that
Yeah.
they didn't even focus on you. You know, we are not talking of those parents that have weekends off to come and stay with their young ones. No, we are talking of parents that are working from Sunday to Sunday.
Yeah.
And they're leaving the house at 5 because they have to walk to wherever they're going. So they can't leave late. And because they're walking back, then they'll be in house like 10, 11 when you're asleep. So there is nothing that you can point out within the family that you're saying, this is something that, okay, a help from my brother or so.
Yeah.
So there is nothing to discover there. If there is, then maybe the suffering that is within the family.
That's what you will discover.
Exactly. If you look at school, I mean, even your teachers are not motivated, because those are private schools that teachers who don't have employment come to do some hustling, and at times they go for 3 months before they are paid, because their salaries come from these students whose parents can't even afford to pay school fee.
Yeah.
So what do you want to learn from an already a teacher who is not? That doesn't say that we didn't have motivated teachers, but most of our teachers, I mean, even those that were motivated, I feel for them. Some of them could come giving you advice, but you wonder.
You'll be like, oh, you could use it on yourself, you know.
Exactly. And so for me, when you're talking about self-realization, if you dig deep into your surrounding, then you may not find it. And so it goes back to, maybe it is internal, and maybe it is just who I am, to do things differently, or it could just be a choice. Because if you say it is who you are, then what do you mean? Is it that those that don't succeed, or
they don't have
not,
anything?
Are they not human beings or something like that? Then maybe it's not about that, because we went to the same school, you are taught with the same teachers,
same
they
community,
were your friends,
you
same
played
community.
the same field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it might also not be just you. Maybe it's just a choice. Maybe it's just a choice.
Interesting. I feel we need to do a little bit of research from that. But how I would segue into another conversation. I was in a cab not so long ago. I think it was on Tuesday, and this gentleman told me, you know what, this philosophy that when a child is born, they come to the world empty-handed. He said that might not be the case. He said that every child comes with something within them. Yeah. So by the time they are here, it's either the parents or the circumstances around them propel them and lighten that thing that they came with onto earth. Escalating this conversation, high school, you went to Homa Bay. Do you think this also had, because when you go to high school, then boys from all walks of life, those who are from well-off families, those who are from different cities, you all come into this vicinity, and then you just get education and you start living life. Did it alter the thinking that you had from the home that you're coming from?
Exactly. I mean, that is the first time I was having a very long period outside the slum setting. so that was significant. But before even we get there, I would want to put something in on the statement where we are talking about a child being born with something.
Yeah.
At times I read such and I read around that, and I'm like, what of those that don't succeed? Is it that
they weren't born with anything? Yeah.
Or is it that...
But you also remember the story in the Bible. There are those who were given, everybody was given different gifts, and there are those who did nothing with their gifts, and still their gifts were taken away from them.
Yeah. So there is always a lot of thinking around that. Is it that they were not given, or is it that they didn't do well with it, or someone snatched it from them?
Kuiba nyota.
Yeah, kuiba. And so that is also a conversation that I mean, you can't really have all the answers. And so it's very interesting, and especially with children. And currently I'm also looking at that because there is something I'm very advocating for called intergenerational solidarity, where we as the young people start taking care of
the
children, and ensuring that we are they don't get to our age and then start talking the way we are talking now, because most young people currently, like I'm thinking our leaders and our elders have let us down in terms of climate and all that I know we will be speaking about. But in order to avoid children,
a repeat
of that, then it means we need intergenerational solidarity to start working together with children to see how that turns out. And if what you're saying is true, because it is written and published in a lot of books where children are born with something, maybe their environment really determines that. Exactly.
For me to get here, I've done quite a bit of things, and kuna wase nilikuwa naosha nao magari. This is back in 2018-17. I pass at those car wash areas, and they still do the same job. 3-4 years down the line, mi siko pale, I've already moved, and I always ponder, what do I have that they do not have? And my queue, I found them there.
And some of them, you even respect them because you feel like even the reasoning might be more than
mine.
Exactly.
But I always ask myself, and not to feel proud, not to feel like I am better than anybody, because I tell myself, Alan, you're not better than anybody. But I ask myself that question, what are they not seeing that I'm seeing? And how can I show them the same thing so that they could have something different in their life?
Now, well, we are talking about high school. I think that is where we were. And I'm saying this is the first time I was out of a slum setup for a very long time. And something crazy, I became the school president because I couldn't connect. This is something many people don't know. They thought I was a leader, but the fact is that I couldn't connect. I joined in from one, and people are coming from all over, and people are speaking, and very few are coming from the slum. And this is the first time I was even hearing perspectives from other areas. Like young people who have grown up in rural areas will always have very different stories with what you have. And when people are speaking about movies, what they were speaking, I was like,
they're talking about Vin Diesel. You're wondering, who the hell is Vin Diesel?
We have things that really they enjoyed in the rural areas that in urban areas don't really
available.
Exactly. Or things that we found fascinating, but if you shared them to most of them, they were like
that's cringe.
And so there was really no connection. And so if people went to class and people were making noise because they have stories to share, I was like that silent one because I didn't have anything
you could not connect.
I could not connect. And so
ni kama kupiga story na wase wako na TV kwao na kwenu hamna TV.
Exactly. Actually that is it. And it's just two. It's like living in two different worlds.
Yeah.
But you see, when you keep quiet, people think you're the focused one. You're the good
They
one.
misconstrue you to be focused. Yeah. They have just not come into your world to get to understand the kind of chaos you come from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then something that is also interesting is that while you live in urban centers, you become good with languages, and
Yeah.
so you may be speaking good Swahili that other people may be good in just doing
Writing it, yeah.
writing it, and because of course when exams come, you realize now they are better than you in
Yeah.
speaking Swahili.
Yeah.
I mean in
In
Swahili,
writing it, yeah.
in writing it, but in terms of speaking, then you are more fluent than them.
Yeah.
And so being fluent is one thing that is always attributed to leaders. And so things like that.
Yeah.
So I started being a leader in Form 1, and then in Form 2, and by Form 3 I was a captain, and at the end of it I ended up being a president. Which I think also started giving me a lot of responsibilities, and now I connect those dots when you are asking what are those things what is that one thing that changed you? And I was saying they may not be that one thing, but a series
string.
of because I was in Orero Boys High School, and we were having a number of like 800 to a big number of young people. And so you're all in charge. You're in charge of these people, and then you have your team of captains that you're working with, and you have people from rich families, you have people from all kinds of backgrounds, and all of them channel their issues to you, and you act like a connection to the administration, and you are there to advise the board, school board, on what they can do, and you also have your own studies to do, and so that's a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder. And this is the first time you're out of that comfort zone you're always in. And so I tend to believe that high school really had a lot to do with who I became, but I can't really point to that one
that this
thing
was the specific thing
in high school. But leadership is one thing, and then working with groups is another thing, because I was reading this quote that a company is nothing. A company is just a group of people. Yeah, and so if you get the good group or a good team, then you have a good company or a great company. But if you get wrong people, then
you have a poor company.
Exactly. And so building teams, working with groups, working with big numbers is also something that I think is valuable if you were to succeed in any field. And so that is also one thing, because the only way you were to survive as a leader in high school is you had to coordinate teams. So how are you going to work with your captains? How are you going to work with your class reps? How are you going to work with teachers? There was no single circumstance that we were working with
a single person.
Exactly. Unless it's your own personal stuff.
I would like to bring in an imposter syndrome here.
Imposter syndrome.
You're leading all these teams, You're talking to teachers, you're talking to fellow students, you're talking to the board of the school. Didn't you ever find yourself say, by the way, huyu ni msee tu wa slum, mbona nafanya hizi vitu zote? Didn't that ever cross your mind? And if it ever crossed your mind, how were you able to deal with it? And I ask you this question because when people start elevating in their lives, then that fear starts kicking in based on their background. Am I good enough? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Is it too early for me? Or is it too soon for me? Yeah,
I think there was a few moments, but not that often. Because in high school things really move so fast. I don't know. People think
you had a lot of things to do.
And so at times you're just like, you just got in, and within no time,
the term is gone.
And you need to go maybe half time, maybe say hi to mom. Within no time you're back, and things really move so fast in high school, and so you really don't have a lot of time to have that reflection. And then I realized I didn't have a lot of personal times while in high school, because you are always having some teams around you, because that's how the leadership structured in our school worked. Rarely will you get me alone. So if you get me, if I'm in my room, then I have like 3 class reps from different class that I'm sleeping with, or a captain that is just next door or something. I think it is structured in a way so that captain is always having a team around him at any given time. I think this is
like a president and his CSs.
Exactly. It's very difficult to find our president alone. And if he's alone, then they must just be somewhere.
There must be Rachel somewhere.
And so I think that's how our system worked. But if you have read anything about self-reflection and things like that, they work best if you can find that personal
solace
time. Exactly, when you're alone. Because even if I went to holidays, that was the only time I could speak to the family, so I wouldn't want to be alone. If I go for half term, I need to talk to mom. We make stories, we talk. And so there was no much of a reflection. But the few period that I had this was in Form 4, when now you feel like, okay, this is what you've done for the school, this is what you've done for your class, this is what you've done for the board and teachers. But now you remember that exams are here, and now you need to do something for yourself. And then you start thinking like, hey,
how is it going to be after here?
Exactly. Or if there is that paper that you have not performed well, you're like, is everything that I did worthless? Could I just focus on this subject and maybe do better? And then being a leader, you have even extra pressure, because you don't want to be a leader who's scoring D's.
Then you get demoted immediately.
You don't want such kind of embarrassments. And so there was also those pressure of, hey, I was not good in books generally, as much as people might think otherwise. I mean, if people were scoring A's and I'm only able to score a B, it's average, so no one will notice whether you're good or not. But I think that's not good enough. So personally, I felt like I'm not good with books, but I'm really doing a lot for people. Is it worth it? Could I just drop everything and
focus on you?
And focus on me. And so those are the only reflections that I had in high school, but not those that could connect my background of, and school.
Interesting. Did you fall from grace when you finished high school now to university? Did you fall from grace, or God was good enough that continued even in at university?
I deliberately avoided it. Deliberately avoided it, because in Form 4 there is something we were working on with the team. Just as I've told you, in high school, leaders work in teams. I think for my high school, we worked in teams, and things like regional leadership, student leadership, governance are things that we spoke about. And I think I didn't like them, because they were now being different. I don't know how to put this well, but there is a difference between leadership and politics. And so when you get to regional student leadership at high school level, then I started seeing the political nature of it, and only coming to realize that it is even worse in universities. Universities is more political than leadership. I don't know if people will agree, but I think there is a difference between being a leader and being a politician. They may have some cross-cutting or gray areas, but those are two different things. And I didn't like politics.
From your point of view, how would you differentiate leadership away from politics, so that people can either agree or disagree? We also have a political show where we agree. It's called Debatable. We agree to disagree. So probably
they say a leader can be a politician, and a politician can be a leader. So it's also very difficult to differentiate,
to put a wall.
But But a leader is not a politician. Or they don't equate. I don't know if this makes sense. But you can't say that a leader is a politician or a politician is a leader. But a leader can be a politician or a politician can be a leader. But
but also for them to sort of crisscross, there must be a turning point for this person who is in the middle to say, I am going to be a politician but still be able to lead.
A leader.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or I'm just going to be a leader and I'm not gonna play any politics. Yeah. So that they
but one major thing that I realized with the difference between the two is that when it comes to politics, you are more of also trying to play popularity game where you want.
It's a game of cards.
That you have to know how to tell people what they want to hear, even if it's not necessarily what helps them. So you have to play that card. But for a leader, you see, you're governed with a vision, a goal, so
there is a destination that you're going to,
and you're not in the game of pleasing masses, right? A game that you can't be a good politician if you
are known for the masses.
Exactly. And so that was one difference that came out very clearly, that hey, Edwin, you say things as they are, and that is not good with
politics.
You can't say things as they are. You have to tell people what they want to hear, or at least you have to find a soft spot between the
truth and a soft lie.
Something like that. And I didn't learn that skill earlier before, and so I thought maybe university won't be a good platform for me to get into this. And so in university, it was
purely books,
but again with hustling, because it's not like now things were so good in high school. And so for me, I was making a joke that I stayed close to 4 to 5 years in Kenyatta University, but I still didn't know the name of some buildings or where some parts were, because I could get in for my classes, then after classes you walk out. You need to volunteer somewhere. You need to be working somewhere. There is that stipend that you're looking for, that you need to buy food or something, because for us, we didn't have someone sending us pocket money.
You had to look for it yourself.
And so I didn't stay so much in school, actually.
But then what do you study at Kenyatta University?
At Kenyatta University, I just finished. I was doing a course in relation to environment and urban planning, specifically called environmental planning and management. And we did a lot of urban planning, regional planning, rural planning, but with the context of environment in them. So
building sustainable cities,
things like that. And so in the first year, my course was in School of Environment, but as we got deep, I think teachers were also struggling of how do we inculcate environmental matters into development issues. And so when they got that clearly, then they said, okay, I think this course is in a wrong school. So we were taken to build environment, where we could work together with architectures, we could work together with engineers to see how do you bring in the environmental aspect in it. So if we are talking about green spaces in urban centers, then you could work with urban planners to develop that, which was different before, because urban planning was more or less just concrete and saying where do we put pavements and where do we have houses,
do we build a skyscraper here or
and there and things like that. But now we were bringing the aspect that, hey, we need to make our cities livable. So how do we make them sustainable? How do we make buildings green? And things like that. I really enjoyed the course, because
I can tell with how you're speaking about it.
I really enjoyed that. But I think another reason that made me enjoy that is because being brought up in an informal settlement, I think I was doing it with that vision that maybe
you can
we can change something. We can make our cities better without places like Mathare, without places like Kibera and things like that.
Don't you think that you're selling out your pals from sorry to call them your pals, but don't you think you'll be selling out your people from the slums and say that you would want to give them a solution. Because look at affordable housing, the project that the government is doing, and we look at is it Prestige, particularly in High Ridge in Kibera. Something different was coming to eradicate the slum. 10 years actually during Kibaki times up to date, guys were given houses as soon as, I don't know if I would get my grammar right. No sooner had they been given those houses, they went back to the slum. So how do you think Edwin would be able to do it a little bit differently?
Yeah, number one was actually realizing that, hey, Edwin, you need to play politics. Because some of these things cannot be solved without playing the political game. Because now you will work with the policies and who makes policies or develop politicians. So, Edwin, as much as you don't like politics, this is your field. And so, I'm thinking of getting serious with that. That you need to be someone who can have political influence for some of these things to take place. So that's just to say the first thing that I noted. But secondly, one thing people have to appreciate is that sustainable urban development or sustainable slum development is a complex stuff. It's not like this is the solution, so let's go this. Because let me tell you, you've just given a good example of the government building the houses and then other people coming to take them. We have not gone so deep and asked who sold the houses. They're actually slum dwellers who were given the houses. And there is a lot that they can use to justify that. I mean, I'm not going to stay in a house where I then sleep angry in the house. Yet I can just go back to what I'm used to, which is that my small space. But rent.
I will get something to eat.
Exactly, because if I rent the house that the government has given me, then at least I can take my child to school. You get where they're coming from. And so you build a house here, and then the following day they're erecting their small structures down there, and then renting this.
So that would mean you need to build an ecosystem around even the project itself.
Exactly. And so housing is not just the
solution.
It's not the only solution. Because now when people talk about housing, they think it's about the structure.
You just put up the structures.
It's not about the structures.
So that's why people who are building estates and they put amenities in those estates, they win at the end of the day. Because if I live, let me just give an example, like Garden City living. There is a mall, so if you live in the house, probably you can have a shop within the mall. So that means that you leave the house at around 8, you come open your shop, you sell, you're able to pay. So that is sort of the ecosystem that you're talking about.
Exactly. And if we can do that for the people that are well off, or the rich, or the middle class, why don't we bring that and do it for the low income earners? So it means if I want this person not to rent their house so that they can worry about their education, why don't we bring issues around education, like how are public schools around there, or is there any food program, like how do they get food? Because trust you me, I'm not going to live in that house and sleep hungry. Absolutely.
When there is somebody who can
pay me
and live in that house.
And live that out. So and that is just appreciating that it is a complex stuff. And we don't need to just take it from a face value.
Point of view.
Because if we do that, then we are going to get it wrong. And what politicians are doing is that they think it's just about the houses.
So even, let's just call it out, even the president, there's some aspects that they have not looked at, even as they are erecting up this affordable housing.
Because whatever the president, and I know people have different opinions, and so you are allowed to have that, and I have to be very sensitive and say I respect everyone's opinion. But whatever the president is doing, in some countries it has worked, because we did a lot of case studies. In some countries it has.
Singapore, the best example that he uses.
I actually wanted to talk about Singapore. and the housing in Singapore is one of the things that people study everywhere as a case study. But what is it that they did? Was it just houses?
So everybody is talking about the houses, but they are not talking about the things that were built around the houses.
There was people looked at it holistically, right? And that is what makes it successful. It's not about the houses.
Yeah.
And so we may have people bringing in money from whatever sources.
Yeah.
I mean, like what people have a problem with is the financing model of
Yeah.
that. And so for me, I wouldn't want to bring the politics in it and
Yeah.
just say that's just a financial model. And so that's what people, just to downplay that political part of where the money is coming from. But what I would say, you may have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then you think the problem is the houses. And then you do the houses.
And then you realize the problem is not the houses.
Exactly. Exactly. And now that will be a problem if that money came from people. Because
so
now the next thing the president is going to suffer from is, hey, we gave you money for housing.
Yeah.
Why is it not working?
Yeah.
And so we need a few more sittings, and maybe I know the president has a lot of good people around them that would then help him to do
to
this.
turn the project around.
One thing I would want to just say is that it is a complex
situation.
issue, and we need not just to see it from a face value, and it needs a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Motor brakes, does it start in school? Does it start from your locality, Mathare, and why does it start?
Motor brakes starts in Mathare after high school and after, not even after university, while in university. I told you I had to go back, do a lot of this volunteer work with local organizations, because from there we could get some little income. I was staying in Kawa Wendani, so I had a small house there, and during weekends and maybe during weekdays I could go back in the community, and then we had these programs and projects that were being sponsored by organizations. And maybe if you could go as a facilitator, at the end of the day you have that your 1,000 shillings, so you come back and you could find a way to sustain
spread
yourself,
it apart,
maybe pay some things, bills, and so over time, I mean, it started as just being able to sustain yourself, but over time you realize you love what you're doing. And so I loved being in the community, and I think that is this one research that we did, a community-led research with an organization, and we were looking at very nitty-gritties of how households survive in the slum. That really opened my eyes to things that, I mean, personally, I've lived there my entire life.
But you're not aware of,
You're not aware of. And so I started appreciating the fact that, hey, I think someone needs to help community realize some of these things. But these had limitations, because not like recently, back then, programs were being directed by the donors. So the donor could come up with a template of what he or she wants you to do. Yes. And so when young people came up with initiatives,
they did not go far.
Exactly, because even your project lead could tell you that, hey, I like your idea, but we can't fix it into this because these are fixed. This is what we are implementing. And so for me, some of the things that were being implemented, I felt like they were not
effective to the people.
Exactly. But we could change them, because that is what the donor wants. So because that is one of the conversations I'm really advocating for now currently. Like, hey, let's co-create donors and those being given
the beneficiaries.
money. Exactly. Let's co-create. But what did that lead to? It led us to starting a small youth group by the name Generation Shapers. And we said, maybe if we start our own youth group, then we'll have freedom to do what we want without really trying to force someone to do something for us.
I'm taking force.
To take force issues. We will still work together, but allow us just have this, so that when we want to do our own stuff, we can do as a youth group. And you know the limitations of a youth group, because this is just a group of young people, and so it was interesting. We did a few activities as we began, and then the ideas now started growing. The next big question was, how do you sustain this youth group? right?
Yeah.
You will need rent, you will need and youths don't stay somewhere if there is nothing for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the issue of youth
They are
mobility
always on the move. Yeah.
youth mobility is
Yeah.
an issue, and so if we didn't figure that out, the group was definitely born to die or
Yeah.
something like that. um, and we started watching all these conversations and learning a lot about entrepreneurship, and listening to people saying that, hey, entrepreneurship is the way to go, and things like that. Then we said, okay, yes, we want to come up with ideas, but for us, our ideas were things that could help solve the problems that we faced.
Yeah.
So Calvin just shared with us the other day that people think he went to school because he loved school, but it was the food program in school that kept
That
him in
made
school.
him.
Yeah, because while his friends were dropping out,
Yeah.
they could easily influence him to drop out. But what their friends didn't know is that they had an option to go eat elsewhere.
Yeah.
For him, he didn't have an option, and so he kept in school because there was food in school. And so we said, maybe a lot of children are in school because
of food. Yeah.
And so we need to sustain that. If that is the pulling factor that brings people to school,
Yeah.
maybe we need to sustain that. And the organization that was supporting food program, I think it was one of the UN bodies, just pulled out. And
Yeah.
so we thought, okay, what is that one thing that is making schools unable to sustain that? Fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because fuel was expensive. I mean, Nairobi, you don't have logs to go cut, and
Yeah.
so those logs comes from other areas of other parts of the country, and transport and all that, and
By the time they are in the city, it's
very expensive.
very expensive.
Very expensive. Without even now looking at the nitty-gritties of, hey, you're cutting down trees and things like that. And so how do we come up with a solution that would provide renewable energy for our institutions? Right? We have a lot of waste in Mathare. How can we do something with that waste to generate or to help schools sustain food programs? So that is how the idea started, and then we can make money and we can employ people and we can get income, and there is all these things that then could come as a reality based on this idea.
Yeah.
But we never really understood how institutions work. You don't just go to a school and say, hey, I want to sell you this stuff.
I remember, you reminded me,
Yeah.
I think I've said this story so many times. I remember we were doing an agriculture program in school, and they were taking us through the whole process of agriculture. And the final process in agriculture is going to the market, selling the produce. And I was like, I am your salesperson. Yeah, I'll just walk into a market and I will sell these carrots.
Crazy. You took
Crazy.
the worst job.
Yeah, I took the worst job because I was able to sell a couple of them, but I wasn't able to sell the entire produce. And also, I came from a family. My mom was a crazy one. Yeah. At exactly 7 p.m. Before 7 p.m. you're supposed to be in the house, and Monday
Or
was
else you should sleep where you are.
absolutely. It seems like you know her.
African women.
Yeah, and this is around 8:30 p.m. I'm not back in the house just as yet. Anyway, I was young, and we lived through that experience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because producing stuff, coming up with products, coming up with services, it's one hell of a thing. But selling it,
It's another mountain to climb.
Another mountain.
Yeah.
And so we say that because there is a lot of stuff needed for you to sell to institutions,
Yeah.
then maybe we need to start with households, because we needed to get to the market.
Yeah.
Right? So we started then selling small briquettes that could then be used with households within informal settlements. Then as we worked around getting all the permits that are needed, and
There are 100 million permits that you need in this country.
and even after having those permits, then now you need to start building relationships and assuring schools
and
that
creating a supply chain.
Exactly. And all that. And so that was a thing. But our idea started by, hey, we were looking at institutions and we were saying we need to sustain food programs in schools, and this is what we are going to do. But because getting into that market was a problem, we said, okay, we have an entire...
What's the low-hanging fruit that we can start with?
That we can start with, because we need to get into the market.
Yeah.
And we started with that. But a part of this story that I've not said is that people say there is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so capital shouldn't be an issue. Right? That is, if you have made it. I don't know if you have been keen, but anyone that has made it always say that there is a lot of capital.
Laying around. You only need to know, how do I get that capital and what am I going to tell the investor to give you that capital?
But young people who are just getting into the entrepreneurship world, what is always their first problem? Capital. You can't find it.
Yeah.
And so that was the same with us. I mean, you hear people say there is money, but you look for it and you can't find it. You can't find it.
Yeah.
I mean, even those investors, just securing meetings with them,
it's a tough one.
Especially when you're coming from a slum settlement.
So you have these double-padded problems.
Crazy.
How do you navigate them? And I find you at a UNDP meeting.
Relax. That was a lot of years after struggling. But the first one is that we had to enroll for a competition. UNICEF was running a competition by the name Generation Unlimited by then. And so we got it. And say, hey, we can apply for this thing and get this money.
Yeah.
And we did it. That was during Corona, I think, and that was the first time we worked remotely. Because I remember schools were closed. KU just closed, and I said, I have a few weeks. Let me go home, because they had said we have closed school for 2 weeks.
So. And there was an impending lockdown.
Yes, but by then I didn't know. Actually, people had not even talked of lockdown. Of course, we had some countries locking down, but Kenya, we had not started. So I moved to go and see my mom
in the village.
Then in the evening, it was locked. I couldn't come back.
Immediately after.
I was home, and I said, hey, and my mom was so happy. My mom was like, I think God has done it. God wanted you to be here. And
to be in the village.
Mom, I have things that I need to do that I have to go back to Nairobi. But I said, okay, it's fine. I'm already here, and we are here. And the rest of my team
are in Nairobi.
But the application needs to go through. And so we had to work remotely and we reviewed those documents and sent. We became the best in Kenya. I mean, they didn't really categorize people into numbers, but they just chose top 5. So I remember we were among the top 5.
Top 5,
And then we got seed funding of 100,000 each. And so everyone in that group got that. But they only wanted 2 people to present Kenya at the global level. And so our team was selected with a very good friend of mine called Eli, who was running a very interesting enterprise. And so we went to represent Kenya at the global. And that took some time. And we emerged global winners in that category of environment. We had like 5 categories. And when it came to environment, our initiative was like the best.
Picked for the best.
And so we got some good money from that, and now started a fully fledged company. Those were the days. I mean, we were
bowling.
We were bowling, and we got enrolled to these innovation centers that taught us even more about, because none of us had a background in business and tech and things like that, or even renewable energy. I had done some course with the HIVOS International on leadership and sustainable energy transition, but it wasn't really something that could make you run a company. And so there is where I think all this started in a big scale. And so you meeting us at exhibitions and things like that, it was after that journey. And so after a while we thought we have learned a lot. So Motobricks can even start Motobricks Innovation Center, where we can, whatever we have learned, we could help teach people and other young people how to come up with initiatives. And that's just another old story. But yes, that is Motor Bricks until when we met.
Currently, what is Motor Bricks doing? Because even when you're doing your introduction, you sort of started with something
Else.
far bigger,
Yeah.
and then you talked about Motor Bricks. What is Motor Bricks doing currently?
Yeah, so Motor Bricks, as we continued, we realized that Motor Bricks cannot serve all our needs. And so we needed people to come up with so many initiatives here and there. Remember, the Generation Shapers Youth Group was still somewhere.
Still alive, yeah.
Yeah, and now we were thinking of, hey, we have learned a lot. We can help young people come up with other things. But who are these young people? People within the youth group still. And so people came up with initiatives. We had people doing very great things. I mean, currently we have an entire company called Queen in Africa that just came from all that arrangement of Motor Bricks, teaching other young people to do stuff. And so we also had this printing company that came up, and they're just doing amazing work in printing AIC materials. And for us, we started seeing ourselves as not just a company, but a leader that is helping other companies grow.
Sprout out of something that started small.
But we had to make a choice. I mean, you can't be a company and be an organization at the same time. And for us to focus and do what we do best as a renewable energy company, we needed to leave alone all these things. And the only thing that could then remain there is Motor Bricks Innovation Center. Because we could use that as also a research institution to support the company. But that was just one thing, and I wasn't willing to stick to that. For me, I saw a bigger picture of just helping young people
and communities around
me, and not just now in Nairobi, and looking at even other urban centers. And remember, now I was just finishing my university education, and I was looking urban planning at a very different lens.
And
so I said,
obviously after traveling, then you're now looking at things at a humongous scale.
And I'm saying it shouldn't end by just producing renewable energy for this community. It shouldn't end there.
This is something that you can either take to the whole country, or you can even take it global.
Even global. And so I thought, why don't we start an organization that is solely looking at supporting youth-led initiatives, through which they can help urban centers become good and safe for children and young people. And so the entire aspect of urbanism, or depending on who your English teacher is, say urbanism or urbanism, but it is just a way of life in urban centers. And so how are we going to shape that to support the context of children and young people living in urban centers in general? And so that was like my next big move when I said, okay, let me start this thing. And we got grants here and there, and we did the first pilot in 2022, and 2023 is just ending, and it was amazing, and we're looking at a very great plan in 2024 to get to Thika, Nakuru, Mombasa. I think Eldoret and Kisumu are also in there,
in the picture,
just to see what can we do in other urban centers. And so what Motor Bricks did is to show us that this thing can be done, and then how do we then elevate that and do it in multiple towns where we can support youth-led initiatives to come up with ideas.
So what is most important is identifying a starting point.
Exactly.
And then you use that starting point as a springboard
to do a lot of things.
As you're doing all of this, because one thing I've picked from you, doubt and you do not belong in the same sentence.
That's one way to put it.
Doubting and you do not belong in the same sentence. But then you've talked about you leading in high school, so definitely this gave you a couple of traits to help you even keep your team together, because you've said that you sustained a youth group for a very long time, and then more than 4 companies or 4 organizations sprang out of that. So that means bringing teams together isn't a bigger, I would say it isn't a bigger deal for you, because you have amassed the concept of building teams. For somebody who is grappling with building a team right now, what would you tell them?
I'll tell them that I don't know what to tell you. Because I'm me listening to you and saying that building teams is not an easy thing. I'm like, does he really know what he's speaking about?
I know, because I also do a couple of things with myself. Yes. And I founded an organization in 2018, and there is either of two things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm giving away the answer, or you might use what I say to give a perfect example. There is, you can either do two things. You as the vision bearer, you be so good at selling your vision to people around you that they will understand it and you will walk the journey together, and that will be your team. Or you fail to explain the vision to them and they do not walk the journey with you, and you look for money to pay people to be around you so that you can execute that dream. I think those are the only two options that you would have, and they all are dependent on you. But also still, the problem with paying people, still you can pay people who do not still have that vision. So you're losing two times. You're losing your time and you're losing your money as well, paying people who are not getting what you're trying to build.
I think we should go to the next question. But anyway, yes, I think you just got it exactly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, based on the environment that I came from, you can imagine who are my friends. These are people that are also just struggling like I am, right? People that may not have that exposure that I was privileged to have.
Yeah.
And that is just recently. I mean, my exposure is just from recent occurrences where now you have to travel, you have to meet various people, and not all of them you will find them in such gatherings and things like that. And so, where does that leave me when we are saying that the first team that people always have in building companies is always your friends and people like that? It means that box is out for me. I mean, if I am to take my friends, some of them would dropped out of school, but those are the only people I know, and so they may be so good at doing something, maybe using their hands and things like that, but now when you get to nitty-gritty, it's like, hey, let's write a proposal, and
they can't take you to the next level.
And so yet you really need to get to that
next level.
And so there was a lot of struggle in building.
So what you're basically saying, and allow me put words in your mouth, if you lose people along the way, you should not feel bad, because you need to elevate. But the set of people that you are with currently cannot help you elevate. So it's okay to leave them behind.
It's not okay. It's necessary. I mean,
cutthroat business person. But continue.
There is this meme that goes around and says, I will not take care of you. I will take care for myself for you.
Jim Rohn, I listen to that man every day.
I didn't know even who said it, but I said it in a meme.
Yeah.
I will not take care of you, but I'll take care
of me for you.
And so, if I have a classmate, if I have a schoolmate or I have a childhood friend that did not really get the opportunities to do that, because it's not like their fault not to go to school. So it's a difficult environment. And so, if I stay there, I'm not helping them. I'm the only one that was given the opportunity to go to school. And so if I go back and say, okay, I'm not going to leave you guys and we have to play this game at this together level, you're not helping them.
You're all going to be the same.
Exactly.
And nothing is going to change.
And actually, they may be worse, because at least you will be suffering, but you have some ideas to survive.
It's like one-eyed man in...
You get
in a group of blind people.
Exactly. And so if you're there, what?
Yeah, there's no difference that you're doing.
You don't need, if you are the only one with the eye, then you don't need to be in the center of the group. You need to move
so that the group can follow you.
Exactly. And so for me, number one, I think it's necessary to leave them. Go out there, get the vision. Then, now that then goes back to who are you? Are you a person that will remember
come and lift them back up?
Lift them up?
Yeah.
And so for me, it will be like, if I want to start Motor Bricks currently,
yeah,
I know I can't do it with my team or my schoolmates. I'll get co-founders that can help me do this.
Yeah.
But after making it work, can I now employ them and
make them a part of the ecosystem?
Exactly. And so they'll benefit from there. They'll get a chance to be part of the team.
So it's hard pouring from an empty cup.
Something like that. And so it is necessary that you leave them. But again, about selling visions and actually paying people to achieve a vision, it's difficult as you progress, it becomes difficult, and as young people also start having responsibilities, it becomes difficult to just sell a dream. I think I tend to believe that I'm so good at talking to people, but it reached a point where you don't just need to talk. People need to go eat. People need to pay rent. They no longer live with their parents. So you may as well just pay them.
So that they can do those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of which I advocate for. I mean, if you're going to build something together, then let's all benefit from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if maybe you're benefiting from a point of view that you are the founder or the director, then for them they need to benefit from a point of view that they get salary as employees and things like that. It doesn't mean we have employees. Actually, we have not reached a level where we pay our employees.
Yeah.
But it's good to have programs like stipend for the team, and that then will encourage you to even attract more talent.
Yeah.
Now, there is nothing as interesting as having a team that is talented, but again, they are getting stipend, like doing both. What we were talking about.
Yeah.
You're paying them, but at the same time, you have sold the vision
to them, and they understand it.
They understand it.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. But again, it's not as easy as we may be putting it.
Yeah.
Building a team. Over time, I've thought that maybe it is also a talent.
That somebody is just good at it.
Exactly. You can't learn HR and now think you go out there and get all the right people.
You'll always find a bad tomato.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I see we can have this conversation for over 2 hours. So let's do this, yeah? Let's find an ending point for this conversation and then make a point to have a longer conversation. So as we're winding up, what are the 3 things that you will tell somebody who is skeptical about starting something? What will you tell them? Not to feel good about themselves, but to have an understanding that they will start and it can go on and it can become something better and bigger and beautiful in whatever they want to build.
Yeah, I always hate this kind of conversations because it may come out wrongly. It may come out as if I've made it already, and it may come out as if I'm doing so well, yet that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so that's just a disclaimer that, hey, I'm not saying this because we have done something great.
Yeah.
I know we have done some good things.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of amazing stuff.
Yeah, but when you look at what you need to deliver, you haven't started. I understand.
Yeah, so I don't want people to think that we have made it, right?
Yeah.
And the basis of this conversation is
that's why the show is called Dreams in Motion.
Still,
we are always in motion. Yeah.
Good. So having said that, I will then say that anytime that you feel you'll need a motivation to do something, whatever it is, if it is a company, then maybe you shouldn't start. Because trust you me, we really struggled to even build Motor Bricks.
Yeah.
And even the idea of building the youth group and bringing people together, there was a lot of struggle. And even now, building this national-wide organization is proving to be a very big dream. I mean, we have a team of about 15 plus, but we are still struggling as if it's only 2 people working on everything.
Yeah.
And so this is even worse for the founder or the director that is managing
the dream bearer.
Or the dream bearer.
Yeah.
And so if you want motivation to do other things, fine. But if you want motivation to start a business or start a company, then most probably you don't. And I'm not saying now you need not to do anything. I mean, some people are just good joining other teams.
Yeah. You could find a team that you believe in and join it.
I mean, if you believe in what I'm saying, just come and say, Edwin, I would like to join you.
Yeah, and they can put their requests in the comment section as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Because I'm always someone who is recruiting on the go, and getting talent is not easy. And so if you feel like, hey, I think I need to join that young man in doing whatever great thing they're doing, you will as well join them. And you may create more value in joining a team than
starting your own thing.
Exactly.
I love how you're putting it. Never looked at it that way.
Yeah, because I think at times we really torture ourselves to do stuff, and if you're really keen, you realize it's just peer pressure, because maybe a friend of yours started something and you also want to start something.
I had somebody call them Me Too businesses.
Me too.
Yeah, Me Too businesses.
I also have.
Yeah, I
have a business. Yes, me too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, hey, you may be better off joining another team. But if you feel you don't need motivation to do what you're doing, I mean, you don't need anyone to motivate you to wake you up, then maybe you're
go
the right
watch Les Brown in the morning.
Yeah,
you listen to Les Brown, you listen to Tony Robinson, you listen to the likes of Patrick Bet-David. If you don't lead such, Edwin has said, you're good to go. Your last two.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Which in simple terms is that if you need motivation, then maybe
it's not for you.
It's not for you.
Yeah.
You may as well just find a team, and you may deliver even more in a team that is already existing. So that's clear.
Yeah.
So number two is that I think you shouldn't be defined by
where you're from.
Exactly. Because if starting companies was for people who have parents that could put in fast
capital, inject,
or inject something. Actually, inject is the best word, from families.
Yeah.
Or companies were meant for people who have studied in these big universities and all that. Then some of us will not have started anything.
Yeah.
So it is always that if you have that dream that you want to start something, if you have that drive that you want to start something, let your background or your environment or something like that not define you.
Yeah.
Because you can really do a lot that you may. People have run successful food companies in using spices that they themselves don't even. I mean, you can get a CEO who doesn't use their product.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean by the fact that you're not eating that product,
you cannot make it.
Exactly. And so I'm saying, if you can't, maybe you're not that person that the environment would predict you would start such a thing, it doesn't mean that. We came from an informal settlement, a very difficult environment, and so far we are talking of a portfolio of close to 5 or 6 companies and organizations that are just sprouting, and I can't wait to see me having this youth-led urban initiatives in all urban centers and supporting them to become something great. I can't wait for that. And so you can also do it from whatever background you're coming from.
Yeah.
If that dream is there, push it. Let it move.
Yeah. Keep it in motion.
Keep it in motion. Right?
Yeah.
So that is also something I would really, because a lot of people, based on their experiences, their background, their parents, their relationships, their
religion,
a lot of things, beliefs and all that, and even single stories, how people would define a race, how people will define set of people in a community, which is not always a good thing to define yourself in that spectrum. So that will be my number 2. Right? Number 3 I was saying this, and I just remembered a joke that
Yeah.
I always don't have plan Bs. If you have a plan B, then
Yeah.
you're already failing. But anyway, this
If you have a fallback plan,
then maybe you're
Yeah.
already failing. But anyway, that's just on the side note. Number 3, I think we have really talked of it enough. The ability to build teams. Remember the first point we said that, hey, if you need the motivation, then maybe you don't need. So that was personal.
yeah,
But again, you may have that motivation, and maybe you're the right person to start that company.
because around you there's nobody who has that motivation.
Yeah, exactly. But can you build a team? And I think there is always an individual with answers on that, or someone who gets just the right people.
Yeah.
It's always trial and error.
You have
and as
to
you
test.
learn, I
You
mean,
have to
these
hire
days
and fire.
I can talk to someone for like 30 minutes and I can tell whether
There will be a fit in the team or there won't be a fit in the team.
exactly.
Yeah.
And not by judging, or,
Yeah.
but
Because you've been around.
I've been around. I've been around and
You've had conversations.
with people.
Yeah.
And so you can just tell, hey, I mean, if you start talking with someone and they start telling you about this big idea that they have,
Yeah.
then maybe they don't belong to your team.
Yeah. They will go away and build their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so such a person, you may want to support them to do that, but not bring them into the team. And such things you only learn after some time.
Yeah.
That not everyone that is good out there should be in your team.
They might be good on their own.
I mean, I've gone recruiting people only to realize that I've joined them in their team. Yeah, because
You thought you recruited them, but they recruited you.
exactly, because
Yeah.
they have this bright vision until you're telling them, what if we start something? I can help you make this work.
Yeah.
Then you end up being in their team. Yet you went with the aspect of bringing them into your team.
Yeah.
And so that is something that for me will really be a game changer. And how do you know how to build a team? I mean, know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
Attitude.
Yeah. Ask
and,
questions.
Ask questions. I mean, and these are things that always now get into individual. We met once, right?
Yeah.
How many people did you meet that day?
A lot of them.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
But why do you think that I'm the only one who is here, or only among the few that you met in that particular
We are still in
event?
conversation.
We're
And
still
we're
in
still in communication.
Why?
Probably there is something that connects us.
And what is that? And so that is the thing you need to ask yourself, that when you go out there and meet people,
Yeah.
what is it that you're portraying that will connect you to them? Right?
Yeah.
And so you can't build a team without that. I mean, you're not going to build a team if you can't stay in people's memory. And the only way to do that is not... some people have built these barriers around them that just keep people away. Yeah. And I always have, because we are talking about inclusion and we're talking about girls, and I always tell some of my female networks that this question ya namba yangu ulitoa wapi will kill you. You know, that's a barrier.
Yeah. There is a meme that I saw, a gentleman and a lady kissing, and then there was another lady who was looking at them with some giggly eyes, and the meme said, sasa huyu ndio namba yangu ulitoa wapi, hizi ndio zinamsumbua sasa.
Yeah, where did you get my number? I mean, such barriers. Yeah, or you start judging people by their race, by their color, by who they
the way
are,
they are dressed.
the way they are dressed.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised, or the way they come from. I tell you, I'm Edwin. I come from Mathare,
I live in
slums,
Mathare,
and then
like,
you don't want to have a meeting with me.
What good can come out of a guy from a slum? To sort of galvanize what you said about talking to people and getting to understand. I've been trying to add somebody onto our team, and I have this board of advisors who help me sort of envision where the organization is going. And I talk to them, and I'm like, there is this person that I've interviewed, and I think they are way up in their field, and they might not be coming to work with me, but they might be coming to take my position, because this is somebody who had over 15 years of experience. They're well accomplished, and if I picked them, they would have been a good fit for the organization. But after asking my board of advisors, they were like, that is a very good person that you would want in the team, but you would also want to ask yourself, won't they feel inadequate once they come into the organization? But that is not where I want to take this. They said a final thing, and it was along the lines of, you can do all the questioning, but also follow what your gut tells you. You can ask 1,000,001 questions, but there is something that in your heart is saying, apana, achana nayo.
Yeah.
So you can do all of that, ask the questions, take through the interviewing oral, written, everything. But as at the end of the day, go back to your gut, go back to your instinct. It might tell you who to hire or not who to hire.
And that's, you remember me saying it might be a talent? Because you don't just develop those guts over time.
These are things that you do repeatedly, and it develops within you.
I don't want to water down the 3 points that we said, because they need to be the last things. But this conversation
can continue.
I feel like we shouldn't stop.
Yeah.
But a few things that you've mentioned there, and I would want to break them down into two things. Number one, you said this is someone that could come and take over your position.
Yeah.
That is one thing I'm really looking at currently, and the problems of founders syndrome. Right. You stop bringing some very talented people
just because you are afraid. But now I wasn't
something. I don't know if you have found it anyway.
I found it, but then my fear wasn't that my position would be taken, because I've even joked with some people that I've worked with that I am working so that I can exit this field, so that I can focus my energies on something else. Just as you did with motor brakes, you build it, now you're then like, when can I go on to the next bigger thing? Because if you also stay stagnant from at the same place, you might not have new ideas of how to take this thing to the next level. But if you give an opportunity to another leader who has understood where the organization is going to, probably they might be the best bet to take your organization to 10
to come from you
to 20 years.
I wanted that to come from you, because so many people don't realize in the field of entrepreneurship, you may be buying yourself a job which won't help you. You need to be a free bird as an entrepreneur. And so a company or an organization shouldn't
hold you down.
The quicker you can make your company to be in autopilot,
the better for you.
You are the person to come up with more ideas. You don't need to be fixed with this
within a single place.
Go out there, start brainstorming, bring people more ideas, bring people more insights. And so I'm happy that you had nothing to do with the inferiority complex that most founders have, or the founders syndrome to stick to one thing. If you are really entrepreneur, you need to be coming up with new ideas and leaving the ones that you have generated and place
keep them running.
Keep them running. And so that is something that I wouldn't want to pass. And then secondly, with guts, I think it's just practice over time. You get to listen to people and you know, I did this, I messed up, I'm not doing it again. And so next time you see it, you know, like that bullshit for 2 years.
This is the same script.
Thank you very much,
Edwin,
for this conversation.
We cannot finish. We'll definitely ask our producer to create more time for us. Also, in your busy schedule, because I requested for this last minute, and it's very graceful that you managed to come. And I hope that we can talk to even some of... there is a gentleman that you've consistently talked about. This is somebody that we could also probably get to invite and also get to listen.
Mr. Calvin, you will want to listen to that guy. I think, and you have to tell him to tell you what kept him in school.
I will want to hear that story from him, from the horse's mouth. So exactly. I hope and I believe that we could create more opportunities for such conversations and even take these conversations to people who might be building things that want to take them to the next level. If you found value As Edwin said in the beginning, I'm going to ask you once again, kindly share this conversation with somebody that you know that might find value from this conversation. This has been Dreams in Motion, been your host, Alan Hubbard. I've been with Edwin Odhiambo, and let's see you in the next one.